Today we're diving headfirst into a business that is heavily, and I mean heavily, marketed online as the absolute simplest passive income stream in the world. We're talking about the economics of owning a car rental business. Now, on the surface, it looks like a total dream. But, as you're going to see in just a minute, the math operating behind the scenes is incredibly demanding. Understanding this math is literally the key to seeing why a few operators absolutely crush it, while others, even massive multi-billion-dollar global corporations, can fail spectacularly.
So, the popular myth tells us that a rental business is basically this turnkey money machine. And honestly, the pitch is super seductive. You buy some cars, you rent them out over and over again, and you just sit back and collect that daily fee. There's zero inventory to constantly restock, right? No product to manufacture. You just have these same shiny cars, supposedly printing cash every single day they aren't sitting still. It sounds completely foolproof.
But here is a massive reality check that flips this entire premise on its head. A car rental company doesn't actually sell rentals. Think about that for a second. What it really sells against is a clock that absolutely never stops ticking. The exact moment you understand that the core product isn't transportation, but a literal race against time and math, the whole industry just looks completely different. So how exactly does this race begin?
Let's look at Section 1, the real cost of insure.
You know, all those TikToks or YouTube videos promising you can start a fleet with almost no money down? Yeah, they usually gloss over some really harsh realities. Sure, a tiny operation might technically get off the ground for $10,000 to $50,000, but man, that number climbs so fast. Why? Because a single, reliable used vehicle all by itself is going to run you anywhere from $15,000 to $30,000. And if you're eyeing brand new economy cars, you're looking at upwards of $40,000 a pop. You can't just secretly sublease your personal car without violating most lease agreements, so you actually have to buy these assets outright or lock down commercial fleet financing.
Oh, and every single one of those vehicles needs commercial auto insurance. Your standard personal policy or a generic business liability plan absolutely will not cover a rental to others exposure. A proper, legitimate commercial policy is going to cost you anywhere from $1,500 to $10,000 a year per car. That depends on your location, local theft rates, and obviously the value of the cars themselves. But any way you slice it, it is a massive, unavoidable fixed cost.
So, putting that all together, the crucial takeaway here is that realistically, even a modest fleet of just 5 to 10 vehicles requires a massive $100,000 to $200,000 in upfront startup capital. Plus, you really need a cash reserve covering 6 to 12 months of operating expenses just to survive slow seasonal demand or that unexpected maintenance downtime.
Now, you might be wondering, what about just setting up shop at the airport, where literally all the travelers are? Well, this definition right here explains exactly why independent operators avoid airport lots like the plague when they're first starting out. Airports charge what's called a concession recovery fee. That is a mandatory 10 to 15% haircut on your gross revenue, and they take that cut before a single other expense of yours is paid. It's a huge barrier to entry for smaller fleets just trying to protect their incredibly slim margins.
Which brings us to Section 2, the asset that loses value. Depreciation is hands down the core mathematical enemy of this entire business model. It's the silent killer. I want you to think of buying a rental car kind of like buying an ice cream cone on a ridiculously hot day. It is actively melting the absolute second it's handed to you. These vehicles lose 15 to 20% of their value annually. Within just 3 years, 60% of the asset's value is completely gone. Poof. Across the entire U.S. car rental industry, depreciation alone eats up roughly 28% of total revenue.
Let's actually visualize that. If we take every single dollar a rental car earns and break it down, roughly 30 cents goes straight into the furnace of depreciation. Then, another 25 cents goes to personnel and daily operations. 20 cents is totally eaten up by maintenance and insurance, and 15 cents pays for the interest on the loans you used to buy the cars in the first place. So what's left? A tiny, tiny sliver of 10 cents, and honestly often less than that, for actual net profit.
This perfectly illustrates the intense underlying tension of the industry. When you look at the EBITDA margin, earnings before interest, taxes, depreciation, and amortization, the business looks unbelievably healthy. We're talking at 25 to 30% margin. But then you look at the true net profit, the EBIT, and it drops to a pretty grim 8.9%. That massive gaping hole between those two numbers, that is entirely just the cost of the cars themselves losing value every single day. So how do you survive this?
Well, to outrun that depreciation, managers have to obsessively track three main metrics to make sure the fleet isn't just sitting idle. First up is the fleet utilization rate, or FUR. You want 75 to 85% of your cars rented out at any given time. If it's any higher than that, you literally can't keep up with routine maintenance. Any lower, and you're just bleeding cash. Next is the average daily rate, or ADR. And finally, RevPAC, which stands for revenue per available car. This basically multiplies your rate by your utilization. A healthy dialed-in operation targets a RevPAC of $40 to $80 a day. Because remember, if a car sits unrented, the depreciation clock is still ticking. That parked car isn't just making $0, it is actively losing you money.
Now for Section 3. Let's look at a case study, Hertz's electric bet.
Let's see exactly how underestimating this exact economic reality brought down a multi-billion-dollar giant. Check out this timeline. In 2020, Hertz actually went bankrupt when the pandemic completely wiped out travel demand overnight. But they were rescued in 2021 with a staggering $6 billion investment. And almost immediately, they made this massive, highly publicized $4 billion bet to reinvent themselves by ordering 100,000 Teslas. On paper, it sounded totally visionary, but reality caught up with that plan fast. Hertz basically fell into a trap. First off, these electric vehicles were far more expensive to repair. We're talking double the cost for collision repairs compared to standard gas cars. But the truly fatal blow? It was our old friend depreciation. To spur their own retail sales, Tesla aggressively slashed its car prices. And think about it, when the price of a brand new Tesla drops, the residual value of every single used Tesla sitting in Hertz's fleet plummets right along with it. Their depreciation problem was suddenly multiplying exponentially.
And the result was brutal. Hertz finished 2024 with an unmanageable $2.9 billion loss in total vehicle depreciation for the year. Over $2 billion of those losses and write-downs were tied directly to the EV experiment. They were forced to aggressively sell off tens of thousands of EVs at a massive loss. It proved definitively that sheer scale does not fix the depreciation problem. In fact, if you get it wrong, scale can make it catastrophic.
So the absolutely crucial point I want you to take away from this explainer is this. The cars aren't truly inventory. They are a ticking clock of vanishing value. A rental car company makes money in spite of owning cars, not because of it. If a massive, multi-billion-dollar giant like Hertz can get absolutely crushed by the depreciation clock, do those internet gurus really have some secret formula to beating the math? Or is the house just always destined to win?